This video is going to be pretty spoilery on the ending of this game. All the major quests are going to be discussed. So if you don't want Ghost of Tsushima to be spoiled, turn this video off and save it for later. For everybody else, welcome to my final thoughts on this game. I loved so much of this game. I really did love so much of this game. And at the exact same time, there's a lot of things I didn't like. And I guess that's probably a good thing because it gives me something to talk about. It gives a developer something to focus on potentially for a sequel, which I think is pretty safe to say we're going to see one. And it also kind of just lets me reflect on video gaming as a whole and how storytelling has evolved over the years. I made the major mistake playing this game thinking that Sucker Punch, who is known for games like Infamous, which has a very clear good and bad story system and choice system throughout the entire experience, I made that mistake and I thought this game would be like that. It isn't until the very end of the game do you really get any choice per se to kind of how you want to wrap up your story. And it really makes no difference how you played to get there. As where I feel like in other games that have a true good and bad decision, to them, and every decision has some levity that really changes your story, this game is not bad. And I made that mistake, and I blame myself for that. But unfortunately, in playing it, I'm constantly being frustrated because I didn't do these things, I didn't play this way, and yet the game is forcing me down a narrative that I didn't really particularly enjoy. Now, taking a step back from it and understanding kind of the narrative as a whole and understanding the story that Sucker Punch wanted to tell us, I can totally understand and respect it for that. And I think as a result of it, that's why I am so conflicted by how this game played out. Allow me to explain. I loved everything about this game when it came to the combat. I think the combat was absolutely phenomenal. I played every single engagement almost identically for about my 30 or so hours in playing the main story, plus all the add-ons and stuff that I did, right? So it wasn't just 30 hours of the main story. It was just playing through all these different things that I've done. And I played every single engagement the same. If I was given the option to do a standoff, I walked directly into the enemy camp and all hell broke loose and I fought everybody like a madman. I never snuck around, I never used stealth, I never used my bow, I never used my poisons. And you're probably saying, well, geez, Jim, how can you review a game if you only played this much of it? And it's because this much of it was phenomenal. The combat in this game is second to none. It feels extremely refined. The parry system, the deflections, rolling around, all felt really good. And unlike other games that you either successfully or unsuccessfully parry an attack, this game had various stages, and I hope this is a mechanic we see going forward. The amount of times you pull off a perfect parry and time slows down, which allows you to get some power back, but additionally unleash pretty much a fatal attack on an enemy, all the way down to is just a glancing blow and you didn't take a whole lot of damage, they didn't do a whole lot of damage, and it's kind of a wash. I love that there's two extremes and there are multiple animations for each enemy type. Forget the whole paper, rock, scissors of what what weapon works against what type of weapon. Forget that. I played the entire game with one stance because I like to just defend, and I had a phenomenal time doing it. And the timing and how multiple enemies are hitting you and you have to block them in certain orders, how you have to block against archers or roll out of the way from smoke bombs or from the little grenades that detonated that set kind of like the Molotovs, was phenomenal. Really good. I can't say enough good things about this, and I would love for them to patch this game with some sort of like horde mode where you're just standing in a room and guys just keep pouring in and you fight until you die. I would love that. I didn't really care for the stealth too much, but that's just me personally. I like the fact that the story injected stealth with combat in a pretty good pace. You did some exploration, you did some talking, you did some riding around. The story moved at a pretty good pace, although I think about halfway through, especially when you're kind of building back up your empire. You've retaken the first Castle Canada and you're moving your way north now. I feel like the story did take a little bit of a slog there, and there was a couple times I quit playing this game because I was getting burnt out on, hey, right over here and let's talk. Okay, let's go sit on the rock and let's go scout the 3 places of where we're going to attack. Although we're going to tell you what exactly you're going to do, so it really doesn't matter. Okay, now we're going to ride on our horse and get ready, and we'll sleep on it. We'll have a little bit of dialogue, and then tomorrow morning we'll go ahead and do the mission we have to do. And unfortunately, I think this game does suffer from some significant repetition in things. The amount of foot tracks that I had to stumble across and find, or investigate a crime scene, or stealth through a very clear corridor of stealth, was a little bit not as fun as I hoped it would be. And for as beautiful and gorgeous as this open world is, I feel like the missions sometimes took the worst of it and put it in such a weird position that, like, there would be much cooler ways to do this, but don't stray too far because you need to return to your tail in 15 seconds or you're done. And I ran into that quite a bit because there were ways I wanted to solve a mission in a very different way than the game wanted me to, and I was forced into a very, very different approach. And again, this is Sucker Punch's story to tell, so I can't criticize the way they wanted to tell their story, but it goes back to my original comment. The illusion of choice, to me, did not exist in this game. They wanted you to play it a very specific way. And that's, I think, what frustrates me so much about the ending, and the fact that I never played like the Ghost. I understand what the concept of the Ghost was, and honestly, I wish we would have seen more of that. I feel like you could have deleted a lot of this game and focused on maybe that midpoint of the game would have been when the Ghost is now just as powerful as kind of the establishment of all of the samurai. And I would have loved to see how that played out, with Jin now giving up everything in order to become the Ghost, losing basically his honor essentially as a samurai, but saving his homeland at any cost. Versus, a very established, formed, we are samurai, this is the way we fight, rank and file, we follow a very distinct creed. I would have loved to see those two groups fight more, and we didn't. Right when it gets good, the game ends. And I feel like that's a major disservice to this game. That's why I say there has to be a sequel, and I hope they continue exploring this conversation because it is really, really good. Yuna is branded as this villain, this bandit who has no honor. And in the end, she's actually a pretty useful ally, isn't she? She helps you throughout the entire game. She never once takes the payoff like Ryozo does. She never once kind of strays in her path like Norio does. She actually sticks with you, and throughout the entire thing, pretty much from the beginning to the end, she is your right-hand man, so to speak. And I like that. I thought that was a cool narrative, but you kind of compare that to everything else that happened in the game, and you kind of look at how Jin loses his honor in this way that I didn't really think was fair. And I don't feel like I lost my honor. I think I played it very nobly. I walked into every camp. I'm here, fight me one-on-one. I very rarely used kunai. I very rarely used any of the ninja-type moves or the stealth mechanics that the game forces you to on those missions. And I feel like that's where the choice of this game could have been way better if it really did kind of follow your path. And, if you were a dick, I feel like you should have been punished and you should have gotten a worse ending. Or if you fought more nobly and kind of what the samurai code was, you could have possibly got a different approach there. And I didn't like that at all. That's why I felt like, throughout this whole thing, I'm waiting for these big moments of like, when is things going to when am I going to be rewarded in a sense for how I played it? And I never was. So I didn't like that. And I think that's probably my biggest criticism of the game by far. Everything else about it, absolutely beautiful. The sound design, the level design, the open worldness of everything, the exploration, finding all the shrines, getting your gadgets, all the ancillary people you meet with their own tales, the legendary armor, invading and defending against various Mongol camps. Just the look and the feel and the style of this game was phenomenal, and I think it really does solidify Sony's first-party studios as some of the best. I mean, this game is receiving ridiculous critical marks, ridiculous critical praise. I know I'm a little late to finishing it and reviewing it, but we are very fast approaching the end of the year, and I think this game's going to win Game of the Year. I don't think it's going to be Last of Us 2. I think it's going to be this game. My personal game of the year, as I've already said, is Tony Hawk Pro Skater, but that's for nostalgic reasons. If you want to talk about pure technical merit and you want to talk about just taking the idea of an open world game and turning it to 50, this game does that in spades. Some of the activities and how you explore the world in terms of following the bird and the fox and looking for smoke and looking for things in the horizon that are different than what you're expecting to see. Those were all phenomenal. We got rid of this waypoint system, like you must go right here. They used the wind. They used a lot of environmental, cues and everything to kind of steer you in a certain path. And it's really, really revolutionary. I think we're coming up very soon on Assassin's Creed Valhalla coming out. I'm going to be very surprised. I hope I'm right, but I'm going to be very surprised the Valhalla plays remotely similar to this experience at all. I don't think it's going to. That's how cutting edge this was, and I think you're going to see a lot of changes in open world design as a result of this game. And there's no denying that, and I think there's no denying that this is a very influential game in the terms of open world experiences, in the terms of exploration. I think that's all there. It's just some of those decision points, which I thought we were going to get those, and we didn't. Sucker Punch wanted you to know this story, and they told it to you, and it was a tragedy, and it was a man who basically gave up everything to save everything, and then at the end of it all, doesn't even get rewarded for his hard work, and he suffers an ultimate tragedy, depending on what ending you chose with your father/uncle, depending on how you played the game. Ultimately, not very fulfilling for Jin. He just ultimately becomes this nameless, faceless ghost, a title that he reluctantly accepts, and he becomes the face of the faceless. And that's where I think the story needs to start. But nope, that's where it ends. I want to hear from you guys below. Let me know your thoughts on this game. I'm sure a lot of you have probably played it 2, 3, 4 times by now, working well on a platinum. I didn't work on that. I'm probably going to be done with this game and move on to other things in my backlog. But I loved so many things about it, just mechanically. And I think that's what would draw people, and myself, most likely to come back at some point and play it again, just because it's so rewarding and it feels so right. They got so much right in this game. But the story stuff and some of the ways that they kind of forced the ending to me just felt so wrong. Let me know what you guys think below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care of yourselves. And until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.